Engine troubles. The Volkswagen Beetle made a sound that Olivia Reed could only describe as dying whale meets garbage disposal, before shuddering to a complete stop. Again. In the exact same spot it had died yesterday, and the day before that, and every weekday for the past 3 weeks. No, 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 she muttered, resting her forehead against the steering wheel. Not today, please. She was already running late for her first music lesson at Franklin Elementary. 25 third graders with recorders awaited her, and that thought alone was enough to make her consider abandoning the car altogether. Olivia checked her watch, 7:40 a.m. She had 20 minutes to somehow resurrect her vehicle and make it across town. Sighing, she grabbed her messenger bag filled with sheet music and climbed out, popping the hood with more force than necessary. A cloud of steam greeted her like an old, unwelcome friend. "We really need to stop meeting like this," came a warm voice from behind her. She turned to find the same man who'd helped her yesterday, tall with kind eyes the color of roasted coffee beans, dark hair slightly tousled, and wearing what appeared to be his daily uniform, faded jeans and a simple, gray Henley with sleeves pushed to his elbows. "I'm beginning to think you sabotaged my car just to be heroic," Olivia quipped, though relief flooded through her. She'd come to rely on this stranger's mechanical expertise. He smiled, the corners of his eyes crinkling. "If I were that clever, I'd have figured out how to fix it permanently by now." He approached the steaming engine with the confidence of someone intimately familiar with mechanical failures. "I'm Ethan, by the way. Don't think I've properly introduced myself despite our daily meetings." "Olivia," she replied, extending a hand that was stained with blue ink from grading music theory assignments the night before. Music teacher extraordinaire, and apparently collector of automotive problems. Ethan's hands were surprisingly smooth for someone she assumed worked with engines, but they were strong as he shook hers. "The radiator's overheating again," he diagnosed, grabbing a rag from his back pocket. "This car is at least 30 years old. What's the story here?" Olivia leaned against the car, watching as he worked. "It was my grandfather's. He taught me to play piano on a beautiful old Steinway, and when he passed he left me both. The piano stays perfectly tuned. This thing not so much, but I can't bear to part with either." There was something soothing about watching Ethan work. He moved, with precision, his focus absolute as he tightened something, loosened something else. The small bookstore cafe behind them, Turning Pages, was just opening for the day, the scent of fresh coffee mingling with the less pleasant smells from her car's engine. "Do you work at a garage nearby?" Olivia asked, realizing she knew nothing about her daily savior. A brief shadow crossed his face. "I just know my way around engines. Family tradition." "Well, your family tradition is saving my job. These kids depend on their music program, and the school's already looking for budget cuts." Ethan glanced up, something flickering in his expression. "You teach music to children?" "3rd through 8th grade. It's not glamorous, but when a kid who's struggling in everything else suddenly finds they can play a melody." She trailed off, smiling. "It changes them. Sometimes it's the first thing they've ever excelled at." He nodded, seeming to understand perfectly. "My mother was a violinist," he offered quietly. "She always said music was the truest language." Something warm bloomed in Olivia's chest. "She sounds wise." She was. His voice carried a gentle finality that Olivia recognized all too well. A comfortable silence fell between them as he continued working. From inside Turning Pages, someone put on a jazz record, the notes floating out to the sidewalk where they stood. "There," Ethan said finally, closing the hood. "That should get you to work, but this is a temporary fix. You really need to take it to a proper mechanic, I know," she finished for him. "It's on my list right after win the lottery and convince 25 children that recorders aren't just noise torture devices." His laugh was unexpected and genuine, a rich sound that made Olivia want to hear it again. "Good luck with both endeavors," he said. "Thank you again. I'd offer to pay you, but teacher salary." She gestured vaguely at her thrift store cardigan and well-worn boots. "How about a proper introduction instead? Tomorrow, coffee, right here." The question hung between them, hopeful and light. Olivia felt her cheeks warm. Only if my car cooperates by breaking down precisely at this spot. Something tells me it will, Ethan replied with a mysterious smile. Some mechanical problems are just serendipitous that way. As she drove away, glancing in her rearview mirror, she saw him still standing there, watching her go. For the first time in weeks, Olivia found herself hoping that tomorrow her car would fail her once again. Notes and wrenches. 2 weeks had passed since Ethan and Olivia's official coffee introduction, and their morning ritual had evolved into something both anticipated and necessary. The Volkswagen still protested daily at the exact same corner, as if the universe itself had conspired to create this peculiar meeting place. Today, Olivia arrived 5 minutes earlier than usual, her hair still damp from her shower and twisted into a messy bun. She'd stayed up late preparing for the spring recital, arranging simplified versions of classical pieces for students who were just beginning to grasp the language of music. As expected, the car sputtered dramatically just as turning pages came into view. She maneuvered it to the curb, no longer frustrated but almost grateful for the mechanical rebellion. Ethan appeared moments later, 2 steaming cups in hand. "I took a chance you'd be here," he said, offering her a cup. "Hazelnut latte. Extra shot." Olivia accepted it gratefully. "You remembered my coffee order. I'm impressed." "I remember everything you tell me," he replied simply, setting his own cup down before examining her engine with practiced ease. There was something different about him this morning, a slight tension around his eyes, the hint of fatigue in the set of his shoulders. She wondered what kind of work he did that could exhaust someone so thoroughly. In their daily conversations, Ethan remained mysteriously vague about his profession, always steering conversation back to her or to broader topics. "Rough night?" she asked, sipping her latte. His hands stilled momentarily. "Long one. Sometimes problems don't have straightforward solutions, no matter how much you want them to. Sounds like my 7th grade clarinet section," Olivia joked, drawing a tired smile from him. Inside her car, sheet music spilled from her bag across the passenger seat. Debussy, Satie, and simplified Mozart for young fingers. Ethan nodded toward Peitsuna, your grandfather's influence. "My entire musical lineage. He played with the Philharmonic for 40 years, second chair violin. Not famous, but respected." Olivia leaned against the car, watching Ethan's hands work methodically. "What about you? Any musical talent hiding behind those mechanical skills?" A self-deprecating smile crossed his face. "I played cello until college. Not well enough for a career, but well enough that my mother didn't wince too visibly." "I demand a demonstration someday," Olivia said, surprising herself with the forwardness. It implied a future, something more than these stolen morning moments. "Only if you play piano for me first," he countered. Their eyes met, and Olivia felt something shift between them, like a new chord progression introduced into a familiar melody. "Deal," she said softly. Ethan finished with the engine, wiping his hands on a rag. The morning light caught the edge of his wristwatch as his sleeve pulled back, a glimpse of something expensive that seemed at odds with his unassuming demeanor. "So," he began, reclaiming his coffee, "tell me more about this spring recital you're planning, the one keeping you up at night." Olivia's expression brightened. "It's this dream I've had since I started teaching. Not just a recital, but the foundation for something bigger. The school's music program is underfunded, always first on the chopping block when budgets tighten." She hesitated, then continued. "I want to create a community music school. Sliding scale tuition, instruments provided, no child turned away for lack of funds. Music education shouldn't be a luxury." Ethan listened intently, his focus complete. Most people glazed over when she talked about music education initiatives. "The recital is my proof of concept," she explained. "Show the community what these kids can accomplish with just the bare minimum resources we have now. Imagine what they could do with actual support." "It sounds perfect," Ethan said, and something in his tone made her believe he truly meant it. "Where would this dream school be located?" Olivia laughed. "That's the part where reality crashes in. There's this beautiful old building on Maple Street, used to be a dance studio. It's been empty for years, Perfect acoustics, enough space. For classrooms, she sighed. Also perfectly out of my price range. Dreams have a way of finding paths to reality, Ethan said with such conviction that Olivia almost believed him. Speaking of reality, I should get to work before Mrs. Holloway gives my job to someone who can afford a reliable car. She started, toward the driver's side, then paused. Why do you do this, Ethan? Help me every morning. The question had been building for days. Strangers didn't just appear daily to rescue other strangers without reason. Ethan considered her question with unexpected seriousness. My life is structured, predictable in ways that aren't always fulfilling. But this, he gestured between them, this is real. You're real. You talk about music like it's oxygen, about your students like they're your own family. He looked away briefly. I fix things for a living, complicated things. But none of it is as satisfying as getting your Beetle running and seeing you smile. The honesty in his voice made something flutter in Olivia's chest. Before she could respond, her phone chimed with a warning that homeroom started in 15 minutes. Tomorrow? She asked, climbing into her car. Ethan nodded. I'll be here. Maybe your car will even start properly for once. Don't jinx it, she called through the window as she pulled away. I'm starting to look forward to the breakdowns. In her rearview mirror, she watched him standing there, coffee in hand, a figure becoming increasingly important in her carefully arranged life. She didn't notice the sleek black luxury sedan parked half a block away, nor the driver waiting patiently inside it for Ethan to finish his morning detour. Across town at Westside Memorial Hospital, the surgical board listed a 9 a.m. procedure. Complex spinal reconstruction, Dr. E. Walsh. The operating room team was prepped and waiting, unaware that their brilliant but enigmatic neurosurgeon was currently fixing a Volkswagen Beetle with a persistently overheating radiator, finding more healing in that simple act than in all the surgeries he would perform that day. Crossed wires. The inevitable finally happened on a rainy Tuesday morning. Olivia's beloved Volkswagen didn't just sputter and stall, it died with a decisive bang, followed by smoke pouring from beneath the hood. She stood on the sidewalk outside, turning pages, drenched despite her umbrella, staring at the steaming corpse of her transportation. I think we've moved beyond my amateur mechanical skills, Ethan said, appearing beside her with an umbrella much larger than hers. His usual calm demeanor couldn't quite hide his concern as he surveyed the damage. 27 years old, Olivia murmured. That's a good life for a car, right? Ethan placed a gentle hand on her shoulder. I think it's time to say goodbye. Rain drummed steadily around them, the city muted behind a gray curtain of water. Pedestrians hurried past, giving the smoking vehicle a wide berth. Inside turning pages, the usual morning crowd sipped coffee, watching the scene through foggy windows. I have 32 kids counting on me to be there for music theory in 40 minutes, Olivia said, her voice unnaturally steady. And my grandfather's car just became a very large paperweight. I'll drive you, Ethan offered immediately. And I'll call a tow service for the Beetle. Olivia hesitated, calculation visible in her expression. Don't you have to get to work too? I have flexibility. This morning, he said, already texting someone on his phone. It's no trouble. Before she could protest further, he guided her toward the end of the block where she assumed his car was parked. She'd never actually seen Ethan's vehicle before, having always departed in her own while he remained at the cafe. This weathered pickup truck is what I'm picturing, she said, trying for humor despite the morning's disaster. Something with character, a few dents, maybe vintage tools rolling around the back seat. Ethan's steps faltered slightly. About that. They turned the corner, and Olivia stopped abruptly. Parked at the curb was not the modest vehicle she'd imagined, but a sleek black Audi with tinted windows. A man in a dark suit stood beside it, umbrella in hand. Dr. Walsh. The man nodded respectfully. The tow truck has been arranged for the lady's vehicle. Olivia turned to Ethan, confusion evident. Dr. Walsh? The suited man opened the rear passenger door and stepped back, apparently unaware of the tension suddenly crackling between them. "Thank you, James." Ethan, Dr. Walsh, said, quietly. "I'll be driving today." James looked momentarily surprised but handed over the keys with a brief nod before walking away. Rain continued to fall around them, but Olivia barely noticed, her focus entirely on the man she thought she'd been getting to know for the past month. "You have a driver," she stated flatly, "and a medical degree, apparently." Ethan's expression was carefully neutral. "Yes to both." "Were you ever going to mention these rather significant details?" He opened the passenger door wider. "Can we discuss this out of the rain? Your students are waiting, and regardless of what you're thinking right now, I know how important they are to you." The practical reminder of her responsibilities, 32 children and a school administration already skeptical of arts funding, forced Olivia to swallow her confusion and slide into the car. The interior was all buttery leather and technology, nothing like her beloved threadbare Beetle. Ethan settled into the driver's seat, the casual mechanic now utterly incongruous with his surroundings. He navigated through morning traffic with practiced ease while Olivia stared straight ahead, her sheet music clutched tightly on her lap, dampness seeping into the pages. "Neurosurgeon," he finally said, breaking the strained silence. "Spinal, reconstruction and trauma, primarily. I also serve on the hospital board of directors at Westside Memorial." Olivia processed this information, matching it against the man who'd spent countless mornings tinkering with her car's engine. So the fixing complicated things wasn't a metaphor. "No," he admitted. "Though people's spines in your Volkswagen have more in common than you might think. Both require patience, precision, and respect for their quirks." Despite herself, Olivia felt a reluctant smile tug at her lips. "And the family tradition? Let me guess. Generations of distinguished surgeons?" Ethan's knuckles whitened slightly on the steering wheel. "My father founded the hospital network. My grandfather before him established the medical school where I trained. Walsh is rather a significant name in healthcare circles." The implications settled around Olivia like a weighted blanket. Not just a doctor, a medical dynasty. Wealth, influence, power. Everything that stood in stark contrast to her precarious employment at a public school with dwindling arts funding. "Why the deception?" she asked quietly as they stopped at a traffic light. "It wasn't intended as deception," Ethan replied, though uncertainty colored his tone. "It began as a simple omission that first morning, and then I enjoyed being just Ethan to you, not Dr. Walsh with the expectations and history attached." The light changed, and they moved forward through the rain-slicked streets. "Every morning before surgery, I stop at Turning Pages for coffee and 20 minutes of normalcy," he continued. "That first day I helped with your car, you looked at me with gratitude but not reverence or calculation. Do you know how rare that is in my world?" Olivia wanted to understand, but the feeling of having been misled persisted. "So, I was what? An experiment in anonymity? A little taste of how the common folk live?" Ethan winced. "That's not fair." "Neither is letting someone believe you're something you're not." They arrived at Franklin Elementary, the brick building looming through the rain. Children in colorful raincoats scurried toward the entrance, shepherded by harried parents and teachers. Ethan pulled up to the front entrance and put the car in park. "Olivia, I never lied about who I am, just what I do. Everything between us has been genuine." She gathered her damp sheet music and bag, avoiding his gaze. "I need to get inside. Thank you for the ride." "Your car? I'll figure it out," she interrupted. "I always do." She reached for the door handle, then paused. "You know what hurts the most? I told you everything about me, my dreams, my struggles. I trusted you with all of it, but you didn't trust me with the truth." Before Ethan could respond, she was out the door, hurrying through the rain toward the school entrance, her figure becoming a blur of motion and color against the gray morning dot inside, the Audi. Ethan sat motionless, watching until she disappeared from view. His phone vibrated with hospital notifications, the day's surgeries waiting, lives depending on his skill and focus. But for the first time in his meticulously ordered life, Dr. Ethan Walsh found himself utterly unprepared for the procedure required to repair What had just been broken? Dissonance and harmony. 3 weeks passed without the familiar morning ritual. Olivia had arranged for a rental car, stretching her already thin budget to its breaking point, while she saved for something more permanent than her beloved Beetle. Each morning she drove past Turning Pages without stopping, ignoring the ache that had settled somewhere beneath her ribs. Today, she pulled into the faculty parking lot earlier than usual. The spring recital was just 2 weeks away, and she needed the extra practice time with her struggling students. Budget meetings were scheduled for the following month, and rumors circulated that the music program might be reduced to part-time status, or eliminated entirely. Principal Richardson intercepted her in the hallway, his perpetually worried expression more pronounced than usual. "Miss Reed, a moment?" Olivia followed him to his office, clutching her coffee cup like a shield. The room was stuffy with importance and bureaucratic furniture. "The board meeting has been moved up," he explained without preamble. "They'll be reviewing departmental budgets next week instead of next month." Cold dread settled in her stomach. "Before the recital, they won't see what the students have accomplished." "I'm afraid so." His expression conveyed genuine regret. "The district is facing significant shortfalls. They're looking at all non-core programs." "Music is core," Olivia insisted, leaning forward. "Studies consistently show." "I know the research." "Miss Reed." Richardson raised a hand. "I've advocated for your program, but ultimately it comes down to numbers." Olivia left his office with determination hardening into resolve. She'd fight for her students, for music education, even if it meant working twice as hard and half the time. The day passed in a blur of lessons, practice sessions, and quiet panic. By evening, Olivia remained in the music room, surrounded by instruments and half-finished arrangements. The janitor had already made 2 passes, pointedly rattling his keys. "Just another 30 minutes, Mr. Diaz," she called, not looking up from the score she was marking. "Take all night if you need it," came a voice that definitely wasn't Mr. Diaz. Olivia's head snapped up. Ethan stood in the doorway, looking both out of place and perfectly at ease in surgical scrubs beneath an expensive overcoat. No pretense of the casual mechanic remained. "How did you get in here?" she asked, too surprised to maintain her practiced indifference. "School security isn't exactly Fort Knox." He took a tentative step into the room. "Your car wasn't outside Turning Pages. I got worried." "It's at the junkyard," Olivia said flatly. "Transmission was beyond repair." Ethan nodded, hands in his pockets. An uncomfortable silence stretched between them, filled with unspoken words and missed mornings. "I heard about the budget review," he finally said. "Next week before your recital." Olivia's eyes narrowed. "How could you possibly know that?" "I made some calls." He gestured vaguely. "Hospital board members tend to know school board members. Overlapping social circles." "Right." The reminder of his connection stung. "Well, thank you for the concern, but as you can see, I'm fine. Just busy trying to save my program." Instead of leaving, Ethan moved further into the room, examining the student artwork on the walls, construction paper notes and hand-drawn treble clefs, colorful interpretations of how music made them feel. "This one's remarkable," he said, stopping before a painting of swirling colors surrounding a small figure with a violin. "The emotion is palpable." "Zach Peterson," Olivia said automatically. 7th grade. "Dyslexia makes reading traditional notation difficult, so we've developed a color system. He's incredibly gifted." Ethan turned to her, eyes soft with understanding. "This is what you're fighting for." "Yes." The simple affirmation caught in her throat. He approached her desk slowly, as if giving her time to object. When she didn't, he sat in a nearby student chair, looking absurdly large in the small plastic seat. "I came to apologize," he said plainly, "and to explain if you'll let me." Olivia set down her pencil. "I'm listening." "My father died 2 years ago," Ethan began, his voice measured. "Heart attack in the middle of a board meeting. He was discussing quarterly projections while marking budget cuts for the pediatric psychiatric unit." He looked down at his hands, surgeon's hands, healer's hands that had also fixed her car countless times. I inherited everything, the position, the expectations, the family legacy. My days became an endless series of surgeries and administrative meetings. Every decision scrutinized, every relationship examined for ulterior motives. His jaw tightened. Do you know how many people have asked me to invest in their startup since I took over? Or how many parents try to set me up with their daughters at hospital fundraisers? Olivia remained silent, watching the conflict play across his features. Then one morning, I saw a woman with ink-stained fingers struggling with an ancient Volkswagen. She looked at me not as Dr. Walsh with the family fortune, but as a potential source of help. Just a person. His voice softened. It felt like breathing for the first time in years. So you just didn't mention the whole Dr. Millionaire thing? Olivia's tone was less accusatory now, more puzzled. At first, it didn't seem relevant. Then, as days passed, it became increasingly difficult to find the right moment. Ethan ran a hand through his hair, disheveling it in a way that reminded her of their first meeting. I know it sounds absurd. I perform complex neurosurgery daily, but I couldn't figure out how to tell a music teacher that I wasn't just a random Good Samaritan. Despite herself, Olivia felt a smile tugging at her lips. It does sound rather ridiculous when you put it that way. I never meant to mislead you, Ethan continued earnestly. Everything else was real. The conversations, the coffee, my interest in you and your work. I just enjoyed being seen for myself, not my family name or bank account. Olivia considered him thoughtfully. The hurt hadn't disappeared, but it had softened around the edges. I think I can understand that. Not agree with how you handled it, but understand. Relief flickered across his face. That's more than I deserve. She glanced at her watch and sighed. Mr. Diaz really will lock us in if we don't leave soon. They gathered her materials in companionable silence. As they walked toward the parking lot, Ethan cleared his throat. About your program, he began, carefully. I may have a suggestion if you're open to it. Olivia slowed her steps. I'm not looking for charity, Ethan. Not charity, he countered. The hospital has a healing arts initiative, music therapy for patients, particularly in long-term recovery. Currently, it's staffed by contracted therapists, but there's been discussion about expanding it. Her interest peaked despite her reservations. Go on. A partnership with your school could be mutually beneficial. Students get performance experience and community service hours. Patients receive the therapeutic benefits of music. His eyes held hers. The hospital board votes on initiative, funding next month. As chair of the Community Outreach Committee, I have significant input. Olivia processed the implications. That could potentially demonstrate the program's value beyond just education. Exactly. Ethan stopped beside a modest Honda, her rental. Not charity. A legitimate partnership that serves both institutions. The possibility unfurled before her. A path forward that didn't require compromising her principles or accepting handouts. I'll consider it, she said finally, but the school board still votes next week before any partnership could be formalized. Ethan's smile held a hint of the confidence that likely served him well in hospital boardrooms. Let me worry about timing. You focus on your recital. As Olivia drove home that night, the weight on her shoulders felt incrementally lighter. The future remained uncertain, but for the first time in weeks, possibility had replaced despair. In her rearview mirror, she watched Ethan's Audi follow at a respectful distance, ensuring she arrived safely, the gesture of someone who cared regardless of job title or bank balance. The dissonance between them hadn't fully resolved, but a new harmony was tentatively emerging, one built on honesty, shared purpose, and the recognition that sometimes people were more complex than the roles they played or the masks they wore. Perfect pitch. The auditorium of Franklin Elementary School had never looked so transformed. Soft lighting replaced the usual harsh fluorescence, and student artwork depicting musical themes adorned the walls. Hand-lettered programs waited on each seat, listing the performers and their selections. Behind the curtain, Olivia moved among her students, adjusting bow ties and calming nerves. Remember, it's not about perfection, she reminded them. It's about sharing the music you love. Zach. Peterson clutched his violin, eyes wide with anticipation. Miss Reed, what if I forget the colored notes? Olivia knelt to his level. Then you'll improvise just like we practiced. Music isn't just on the page, remember? It's also in here. She tapped his chest gently. The boy nodded, his confidence visibly bolstered. Through a gap in the curtain, Olivia surveyed the gathering audience. Parents and siblings filled most seats, but the back row held unexpected guests. The entire school board, Principal Richardson looking unusually optimistic beside them. And next to them sat 5 people in formal attire, hospital badges visible on their lapels. Her heart skipped. Ethan had mentioned bringing a few colleagues, not half the hospital board. As if summoned by her thoughts, he appeared beside her, looking both uncomfortable and determined in a perfectly tailored suit. Quite the turnout, Olivia whispered, nodding toward the back row. I may have emphasized the therapeutic applications a bit strongly, Ethan admitted, and mentioned the research grants available for innovative community health partnerships. Olivia raised an eyebrow. Manipulative. Strategic, he countered with a smile. Also, I might have arranged for the children's ward patients well enough to travel to attend as a field trip. They're arriving for the second half. Before she could respond, Principal Richardson approached, hand extended toward Ethan. Dr. Walsh, thank you again for your interest in our humble program. The pleasure's mine, Ethan replied smoothly. Westside Memorial is always looking for innovative community partnerships. Richardson beamed at Olivia. The board is quite intrigued by the proposal. A joint music therapy initiative would certainly strengthen the case for maintaining full program funding. When he walked away, Olivia turned to Ethan. You've been busy. I merely created the opportunity, he said softly. You and your students will do the rest. This program deserves to exist, Olivia. I'm just making sure the right people see its value. The house lights dimmed, signaling it was time to begin. Olivia squeezed Ethan's hand briefly before taking her place at the piano. The recital began with a beginner's ensemble, slightly off-key, but enthusiastic. Parents leaned forward in their seats, recording on phones and dabbing at unexpected tears. As the program progressed, more advanced students performed, each introduction including how long they'd studied and what music meant to them. When Zach took center stage with his violin, Olivia held her breath. The boy's hands trembled slightly as he tucked the instrument under his chin. I'm going to play The Swan by Saint-Saëns, he announced. Miss Reed helped me create my own color system, because I see letters backwards sometimes. The colors help me understand the music better. He nodded to Olivia at the piano and they began. The first few notes wavered, but then Zach closed his eyes, letting the music flow through him. The melody soared, pure and true, filling the auditorium with unexpected beauty. Olivia glanced toward the back row. The school board members were sitting straighter, and one of the hospital representatives was wiping discreetly at her eyes. After the final note faded, silence hung for a breath before thunderous applause erupted. Zach bowed awkwardly, a brilliant smile lighting his face. The recital concluded with all students joining in a simplified arrangement of Beethoven's Ode to Joy. As the last chord resonated through the auditorium, Olivia stood to address the audience. Music isn't a luxury, she said, her voice steady with conviction. It's essential language, mathematics, history, and emotional intelligence wrapped in melody. These students don't just learn notes, they learn discipline, collaboration, and how to express what sometimes can't be said in words. She gestured to her students, pride evident in her expression. They deserve every opportunity to continue this journey, as do all children in our community. Thank you for supporting them tonight. The reception afterward buzzed with excitement. School board members mingled with hospital representatives, discussions of innovative partnerships and community engagement floating through the air. Children from the hospital ward interacted with the student performers, examining instruments with curious hands. Olivia found a quiet moment amid the chaos, slipping outside for a breath of fresh air. The spring evening was mild, stars emerging. In the deepening blue sky. Ethan joined her, 2 plastic cups of punch in hand. Hiding from your success? She accepted the punch with a grateful smile. Processing it. Did you see Richardson's face when the hospital board chair mentioned matching funds for instrument purchases? I believe the term is gobsmacked, Ethan replied, loosening his tie. The partnership proposal will pass unanimously. Your program is safe. Relief washed over her. Thank you doesn't seem adequate. You did the hard part, he insisted. Years of building something meaningful, pouring yourself into these kids. I just made sure the right people noticed. They stood in comfortable silence for a moment, the sounds of celebration drifting through open windows. There's something else I wanted to discuss, Ethan said, his tone shifting to something more tentative. That building on Maple Street you mentioned, the former dance studio? Olivia's heart beat faster. What about it? The Walsh Foundation purchased it last week. He watched her carefully. We're establishing a community music center with programming for both children and adults. Full scholarship options, instrument lending library, the works. She stared at him, processing the implications. Ethan. Before you protest, he continued quickly, this isn't about you or us. It's something I've been considering since my mother passed. She always believed music was healing in ways medicine couldn't touch. His expression softened with memory. The foundation board unanimously approved the project on its own merits. And the director position? Olivia asked, suspecting the answer. Would require someone with extensive music education experience, community connections, and a passion for accessible arts education? His eyes held hers. The search committee would welcome your application should you be interested, completely separate from any personal relationship, evaluated on professional qualifications alone. Olivia set her punch aside, emotions threatening to overwhelm her. My dream. You remembered? I remember everything you tell me, Ethan replied, echoing words from weeks ago. But this isn't me making your dream come true, Olivia. It's recognizing that your dream has value to the entire community, independent of how I feel about you. And how do you feel about me? The question slipped out before she could reconsider. Ethan stepped closer, his expression unguarded, like I've spent my entire life in rooms full of people who see Dr. Walsh, hospital board director and surgical prodigy, but never really see me. Until a music teacher with ink-stained fingers looked at a man fixing her car and just saw Ethan. He took her hands in his, surgeon's precision gentled by genuine emotion. I'm still learning how to be fully myself in all aspects of my life, but I know that I'm better, more authentic, more present when I'm with you. Inside the auditorium, someone had started playing the piano, one of her advanced students by the sound of it. The melody drifted through the open windows, creating a perfect soundtrack to the moment. I'd like to apply for that director position, Olivia said, her voice steady despite the emotion behind it, based solely on my qualifications. Of course, Ethan nodded, completely serious. And I'd like to have dinner with you, she continued. Not Dr. Walsh or the mechanic or the foundation director, just Ethan. His smile spread slowly, reaching his eyes. I know a place where they make excellent pasta. The chef doesn't know who I am, and the tables wobble just enough to feel genuine. Olivia laughed, the sound bright in the spring evening. Perfect. From inside came the sound of children's voices joined in spontaneous song, hospital patients, and student performers finding harmony together. In that moment, standing beneath the emerging stars with possibilities unfolding before them, Olivia and Ethan recognized the truth that had brought them together in the first place. Sometimes, the most meaningful connections happen when titles and expectations fall away, leaving only authentic hearts seeking the same melody. As they walked back inside, shoulders brushing, they joined the larger symphony already in progress, one composed of dreams recognized, barriers overcome, and the perfect pitch of two people who had finally found the courage to play their true notes. The Community Music Center on Maple Street would open its doors 6 months later, its walls soon filled with the sounds of discovery and joy. And every morning its director would arrive in a sensible, reliable car, sometimes accompanied by a distinguished neurosurgeon who still, on occasion, rolled up his sleeves to fix things that needed repair, finding in that simple act the perfect counterpoint to the complexities of his professional world. Their story became not one of wealth or titles, but of authenticity. Two people who had found in each other the courage to be fully themselves, creating together a harmony more beautiful than either could have composed alone.